so exciting. Thanks to everyone who subscribed and got us to 56 subscribers. So you can go live from my phone now. It's really exciting. Welcome. We're doing the shir in my house because of the weathers, but we still have a view. Can you see it? Okay, happy birthday. Today's shir we're going to dedicate to our birthday guest, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Shira. Tova, Clement, you should have many years of bracha, success, and fulfilling all of your dreams, inner happiness and peace, love, joy, and only good things, revealed good. And the Rebbe said that birthdays, until Jewish people didn't really celebrate birthdays for years, and the Rebbe reintroduced celebrating birthdays to the world when his wife's birthday, and he said a birthday is such a special day to celebrate. It's a day that Hashem saw that the world can't exist another day without you, specifically you, and each day that you're born it means that you're created because today needs to exist with you, and you have something special and unique to perform. And specifically birthdays is so powerful because every day, Hashem is saying the world can't exist without you, but on your birthday, all of the you say mazel tov, right? Like mazel means the constellations. The constellations all realign exactly the way they were when you were born. So your flow of life, which Hashem sends through the constellations and through the stars to you, and which shape you, right? The stars that are in control and ruling during the times that you're born, all the different planets, all the houses and all the planets, all the constellations, whatever they are, and whoever knows what they mean, the way they are aligned to the time when you were born, and your life flow comes through them. So every year on your birthday, everything is exactly aligned, and your life force comes in a much more affluent and direct way. And that's why you have the power to bless people on your birthday, because you have, and it's a time of good luck and fortune. And this was known to Jews and non-Jews, right? That's why we learned in the war with Amalek and the Jewish people, he only sent people, all the soldiers whose birthdays were on that day, because he knew that their fortune would shine in their favor. And it's very hard for a soldier to be killed on their birthday, because everything is coming to them in a very direct way, all of their life force. So you should feel all of the mazel and utilize this beautiful day to share blessings with people and to manifest all the good things that we all want for you. So happy birthday. Okay, Parshat Vayechi, we're ending off the Chumash of Bereshis with a bang. Really exciting. The first Sefer Bereshis, which is sad to say goodbye to it because it's for sure the most, and for me, the most enjoyable Chumash to read. So Vayechi is the last Parsha. You have some source sheets. Do we have enough? I thought I printed 10, but...
Could I close the curtain? Yes.
Oh.
It's too bright behind. No, just this is half. This is half.
Sure.
Right.
It's better for the live stream as well, because it was definitely blinded.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't have source sheets, you could share, but I need to share with somebody too. Actually, no, I just want to see to know what to tell you. Is there not enough? Hey.
If somebody wants it, I can give it.
No, but I want you guys to have too.
You guys have it. I understand from,
Okay. Sorry about that.
I can look in the phone.
Okay, so recap of the parsha. Vayigash was when Yehuda said, "Take me instead of Binyamin. Don't take Binyamin. Our father will die." And Yosef couldn't contain himself, and he reveals himself to his brothers, and that drama unfolds. And then Yaakov comes down to Mitzrayim, and we have that reunion. Right, last week was the reunion already. When Yaakov and all of the 70 people come down to Mitzrayim. And the Jewish people settle in Eretz Goshen. Paro gives a really warm welcome to Yaakov. Tons of blessings come to Egypt because of Yaakov. And Paro loves having him there. He gives them lots of wealth. He was extremely influential, extremely wealthy, and they lived prosperous. They lived there for 17 years. Okay, so the last thing is Vayifru B'Yirbim Od. They had a lot of property. They were fertile, and their population increased very rapidly. They had favor in Paro's eyes, and they were at the top, right? They were special people in Mitzrayim. Now, Vayechi. So Vayechi begins with, let's just give a overview. Overview is Vayechi discusses the passing of Yaakov, and before his passing, all the blessings that he imparts to his children and to his grandsons Ephraim and Menashe, his burial in Ma'aras Machpelah when they get permission to take him out, and that whole saga and drama over there. And then we have Yosef's passing. We have the Yaakov apologizing to Yosef for his mother not being buried in Ma'aras Machpelah and being buried on the roadside on the way to Efrat, right here. And we have the blessed, so Yosef hinting or telling them that they're going to be in Mitzrayim for quite a long time, longer than they would like, and that they're going to have to remain for a long time, as per the prophecy of Hashem, right, to Abraham. And when they go out, he gives them the hint, and he ends up saying, Pakod Yifked, that you're going to be here for a long time, but Hashem's going to remember you. And then he passes away, and he says, when Hashem remembers you and takes you out, then take my bones out with you and bring me out of Mitzrayim. Then he passes away, and they leave him in, I don't know if they mummified him, but they leave him in a casket in Mitzrayim, right? They hid him in the Nile. So that's the ending, the conclusion to this whole Sefer of Bereshis, which really is like a story of the evolving of how we came to be. It's our history. It's how the Jewish nation came to be. The stories in Bereshis, Chumash Bereshis, are individuals. Our stories of individuals and of families, of rivalry. Even though they're much deeper, the stories are also, going into our soul, right? There's Yaakov and Esav, two brothers fighting, which are also the inner battle and struggle that we have with Yaakov and Esav inside of us as well at the same time. But they're individual stories. And then in Shemos, we move on to being a nation, right? Everything that happens to us is not really happening only to individual, it's how it's affecting the entire nation, right? Even though we talk about the birth of Moshe, it's then that Moshe saves the entire people, and then it's what happened to the Bnei Israel, right? To the children of Israel. This is really how we formed and how we came to be. And we could spend a lot of time talking about, even in the names of the Parshios, like talking about our story, the creation of the world, Noach being the purpose of creation, right? Our descent, our work, being Vayeshlach, being propagators of, of spreading the mission of what we're even here to be. We're going to focus on a few other things today that I'm really excited to talk about. Firstly, the name of the Parsha. We always talk about the name of the Parsha. The name of the Parsha is Vayechi, which means, and he lived, right? What does it mean? Yaakov lived in Mitzrayim for 17 years. It says, Shivas Rashana, Vayechi Yemei Yaakov, and all his days of his life were Sheva Shana V'Arba'im Uma Shana, right? 147 years in total, right? So he was 130 when he came down to Mitzrayim. And now he says he's sensing that it's time for him to die, and he calls his children and says he calls his son Yosef, and he says, swear to me that you're not going to bury me in Mitzrayim, right? So the main question is that we see that most of the Parsha deals with not the life of Yaakov, which is Vayechi, the name of the Parsha, and the name of the Parsha usually hints to us the core message of the entire Parsha, the core of it. Most of this Parsha deals with death. It deals with the death of Yaakov, mostly the burial of Yaakov, the death of Yosef, even talking about the death of Rachel. It deals with death and burial. Very little about life. It's everyone's passing. It's the passing of this whole generation. But we're calling it the life of Yaakov, or Vayechi, the life. So we want to understand this. Like Chayei Sarah, exactly. What?
Death is a part of life.
Death is a part of life, in fact, and even more than that, death in Judaism. In most cases, if you'd ask somebody what's the opposite of life, they say death, right? Death and life are opposites. But in Judaism, death and life are actually much more closer connected than being opposites. They're two sides of one coin. And they're very, very close to one another, and they're not so far apart from one another, because in Judaism we have values and beliefs that make us realize that death and life are not actually are not that distant from one another at all, not in a morbid way. In Judaism, we learn that that speaking about death and discussing death and learning about death helps us be much more connected to truly living, because first of all, living is subject to a discussion in Judaism, right? Somebody who's not necessarily somebody who's in the ground considered dead in Judaism, because many times you see that Yaakov Avinu lo meis, he's in the ground, but it says Yaakov Avinu didn't die, right? But his body's in the ground. So when we call death in Judaism, it's not necessarily what the science would call death, which is a body without a heartbeat, because somebody is considered alive and flourishing, and somebody who's alive can also be called dead in Judaism, right? We have many people who says mitzorah chashuv kameis, that it's someone with tsaras is considered like they're dead, a rasha, a blind person, a poor person, that they're considered dead in a certain way, that they're missing life, they're missing what life is really all about. So death and life are subject to mean different things in the Torah. They hold different values and different meanings. So death and life are not that far apart. So we really want to get to the core of what is death and what is life, right? What does it mean to live and what does it mean to die? And the truth is that, especially when talking about, let's go talk about death, that even when someone passes away, we see that they haven't passed away. It says by Yaakov that Yaakov Avinu lo meis. First of all, I brought you the source that Vayigva, it says that when it speaks about Yaakov passing, it says Vayichal Yaakov latzavas espana v'yesof raglav v'lamita Vayigva Vayasif alamav. It says Vayigva, which means he was gathered. He Vayigva, and usually would say Vayamas. And Rashi says, usually says Vayigva Vayamas, and Rashi says Umisa lo nemra v'amar Rabbi Yaakov Vinu lo mes. Rabbi said Yaakov Vinu lo mes because it doesn't say the word Vayamas about him. It just says he was gathered. So what does that mean? That he didn't actually die? It says that they embalmed him. It says that they carried his coffin and grave. So the Gemara discusses it means Mazaro b'chaim afu b'chaim. That what does it mean that that he didn't die? Because his children are alive, his seed are alive. That means he's alive. First of all, his children aren't alive either. So what it means is that what a person's true existence is continues to live after death. If his true existence is not just his body, right? We're not just a body. Our body is a shell for our soul, for our existence, for our core, for who we are. And that continues to live even after the body dies. But Yaakov didn't die. Maybe his body was embalmed and put in the ground, but Yaakov's whole essence, Yaakov's whole existence is continuing, his legacy is continuing with his Zara, with his children. But it doesn't only mean physical children, right? Because we know that, for one example, that obviously is the most obvious to me is the Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't have children. But we can see more than ever that his legacy is continuing to live here in this room, in every corner of the world. And the most amazing testament to it is every year at the Kinos HaShlochais, for the men and women, they say, they do a roll call at the end of the banquet, and they say, all of the shluchim who went out before Gimel Tammuz, which is the Rebbe's passing, please rise, and everyone claps for them, and there's a couple hundred maybe. And then they say, and now all of the shluchim who went out dedicated their entire life to servicing communities around the world after the Rebbe's passing, please rise. And then there's thousands of shluchim who rise, and it's such a breathtaking moment because you realize that the Rebbe's impact on the world, nothing to do with his physical children, right? Not everyone in marriage to have physical children, but his impact, who the Rebbe was, his vision for life, everything he stood for and lived for continues more. So when we say the Rebbe's still with us, most people, usually mean that the Rebbe, his impact, his connection to us. And we know that our connection to somebody who passed away doesn't end when their body goes. Their connection to us continues, sometimes even stronger, right? We speak to them, we connect to them, we feel them in our lives. We see this in so many real ways. I have a friend that she and her sister were single, close in their 30s, and they, it was really hard for them. And their mother passed away within a year, suddenly of a disease. And within a year after her passing, they both got married. And they felt that their mother was arranging crazy things for them to find their person. We know that a person's connection to somebody doesn't end after their physical body passes. So what true life is, the things that matter, the things that really are truly life, those things don't end when somebody's body leaves the world. Their body is their vessel for this lifetime. But we know that there's not only, in Judaism we believe there's not only one life, there's more than one life. Our neshama is eternal, right? Our soul and our memories and our experiences continue as well, not just the spark of God inside of us. What constitutes who we are is all of the experience that made us who we are, all the lessons that we learned and all the connections that we made with people. Those things never pass. Those connections that we have with people we learn, we connect even stronger after the passing of somebody, right? The Rebbe would go to the grave of his father-in-law to daven all the time because there's the Shekhinah was there specifically by the grave. So our connection to somebody does not leave when they pass away. And all the things that they stood for, if you truly feel about what life is actually all about, all of the real things that constitute life continue long after a person passes, as long as the things that so this is what teaches us about life. So when we think about that and we think about what death is, and I remember my husband on the first date, and I asked this to people I dated, I asked him randomly mid-conversation, I was just what do you want people to remember you for after you die? And he was just what? I'm just, why is that so important for me to know? I asked everyone I met what they wanted to be remembered. There's one thing you could be remembered for after you die. What do you want that to be? Because that tells me about what you live for. When you know about what you want, what you would die for, what would you give up your life for, right? And what would you want to be remembered for? What's the one thing you want people to say about you when you die? That tells me who you are, what values you are, what you live your life for. What's the most important things for you to know in life? I'm not asking about death because I'm morbid, but also because it will tell me about everything that is truly meaningful and everything that you really live for. And when we think about death and we think about what we want to be remembered for, when we think about what our legacy is, what we're going to continue in the world, it helps us. Gives us more life than anything else because it helps us remember what we're living for. It helps us align our lives every single day and live life to the fullest and seize the day and not just exist in a way that's not really truly living. That's why people have near-death experiences. Their life completely transforms many times because having that realization of what happens after death, or even that near encounter, or even suddenly realizing that everything could have ended, helps us mortality more than anything. Knowing that we're mortal and the reminder of mortality causes us to live in a much more vital way, to live with real life and truly live. Because without mortality, if we knew that life was eternal and endless, it would be, any very day would be meaningless, right? Knowing that there's an end and knowing that we're mortal and that any day, we don't know how many days we have left, that's what gives meaning to every single day, which is so counterintuitive, right? But if you really think about it, if there was endless days to do everything, then every day would just be like, okay, whatever, another day. I have forever, right? I don't have to make today count. I don't have to seize today. And eventually everything becomes completely meaningless because it's just going to go on forever and ever and ever. It's the most depressing thing. So mortality, although it's sad and it's painful, at the same time, it's also what gives meaning to our lives. It's also what makes every single day count. And it's what gives any meaning to every day is the fact that they're numbered. It's the fact that knowing that there's, our days are numbered. We don't know how much time we have left, and we want to seize every day and make the connections meaningful, make their impact on the world, leave our legacy, and live each day to what makes us think about what's valuable to us, what our values are, and live life in line with those things. Even though we shouldn't, in Chassidus, we know that ultimately our bodies are not just a shell to be discarded. If we have to take care of our homes, the body is our home for our soul. It's the only way our soul can impact the world, right? So we have to really respect our bodies, and they don't even belong to us. Our bodies are given to us as a gift from Hashem. So we have to respect our bodies, care for our bodies in the most, in the most amazing way, because our body is the only way we can do any of the impacts we have on other people are through our body, right? We can't connect with people, we can't leave a legacy, we can't inspire, we can't teach, all the things that we do, even though we could connect after passing, but the true creation comes through our body. So we really have to treat our body with the utmost respect, and also note that even deeper, our body comes from a much, like we said last week's Parsha, our body comes from an even in part in Teves, that our body comes from an even higher place than our souls. That ultimately our bodies are from such a high place because they come down in this vessel, in this low, seemingly low way. So our bodies are not saying to be discarded, but it's not the end all be all, right? So there's a really big balance of acquiring things. We know that through physicality, it's not that we should say don't live a life of anything physical, because who cares? You're just here to be spiritual, because it's through the physical that we connect to the highest sources, right? It's specifically through the physical. So it's not to discard the physical, but it's only to use the physical as a medium, right? For things that are valuable, for things that are important, and not to give an end be all to the physical things in our life, because they're not the things that are going to take us. The physical things in our life are a medium to live the fullest life that we can live, to live every day to its fullest. The experiences and the physical experiences are so important as well, right? But they're not the end all of everything, right? At the end of the day, we want to remember what it is that we're taking with us in the physical experience, right? To know that we can take something from this, like not just a physical picture, but we can take something in our heart, in our soul, something that will inspire us, right? If we're on a physical nature walk, right? Seeing something glorious, right? We can take physical pictures and post them, but we can also say, well, I want to take something I want to take something from this experience that will be forever, right? Even after my lifetime, right? I want this to inspire me and impact me, to make me open to greatness, right? To look at the stars and say, how great is this world? How much there is, right? To expand me and expand my consciousness. So there's so many ways we can take that. Another way that we see the beautiful connection between death and life is, I'm a Kala teacher, I teach brides, and one of the most beautiful teachings that I came across a couple years ago is that the mikvah is symbolizes the womb, that just like before we're born, we're completely encompassed, a fetus is completely encompassed in the amniotic fluids of her mother's womb, and then she emerges into the world. Going to the mikvah is returning to that womb-like state, right? And psychologists will say that, some psychologists say that we're all chasing that oneness, that feeling of oneness that we had in the womb when we're just nurtured and have everything that we need. And then in relationships, we're searching to be one with another person the way we were returning to that womb-like stage. And in the mikvah, we have that experience, and what we're meant to do is just remove everything and be like a fetus without anything upon us, just us enveloped by this amniotic fluid of God, right? Like the mikvah, like the Mabul in Noach, where Hashem put the world back into that amniotic fluid of the world, right? That womb-like stage that was in the world before it emerged from the water, right? The water was surrounded by water, and then we emerged. So going to the mikvah is returning to that stage, and it's also symbolic of the grave, because it's not just surrounded by water, but it's also a hole dug into the ground. The mikvah is dug into the ground. It's a space that's dug in. It has to be in the earth, connected to the earth. And that's where we return. So the mikvah is that connection and that bridge between birth and death, right? Between life when we emerge from the womb, which is the source of all life, and the grave, which is where everything returns to, which is also that state of oneness, right? When a soul is in the ground, it's encompassed by oneness. It returns to God, to that state of being completely bittul. And that's why is the mikvah that stage? Because the mikvah, we say tvila, litvol, right? Ala tvila, right? And tvila is the same word as bittul. Bittul is letting go of all my sense of self and submitting to something greater than me. Bittul is a mikvah, is dipping. Like dipping is submitting yourself to something greater, and it's letting go of all power and just being held by Hashem. It's submitting in the greatest way. It's submitting and just saying, I want to be held, I want to be carried, and just hold me, and submitting all of my sense of self in a way to be encompassed by something much greater than me. And that mikvah is that bridge, and that's why it's that bridge. And the times we go to the mikvah are anytime we have anything to do with life and death, with mortality, or when we go to the mikvah, to be reminded of that. The mikvah is when we come in contact with a dead body, with a dead animal, when somebody is born in the world, when somebody gives birth, we also go to that stage, go to that mikvah stage. Every month when a woman menstruates and she has that capacity for life inside of her, and she sheds her eggs, then she also goes to the mikvah because she's again reminded of mortality. And that reminder of mortality is very powerful when we go back to that stage of realizing how connected birth and death are, right? There's an egg, and then we have this potential for life, and then it's shed and released. And in that moment, she goes to the mikvah and returns to that state of this reminder of this connection and this bridge between death and life, and the reminder that mortality has about how significant life is, and to remember where everything comes from, where we come from, right? And where we're going. And that we're going to a space where not it ends all in the ground. Our body is there and our soul continues, and we have it, in whatever form it will take, in another lifetime, in another way, come back into this body. And also not everyone knows that a body before it's buried is also dipped in the mikvah. Again, in that same state, in this returning to that womb-like state and that rebirth, right? Because death is not an end, it's a rebirth and it's a recreation. So it was just so symbolic that in Judaism, we really, death and life are not what we think they are. It's not just a scientific term. It's truly okay, so let me get to the next point. We'll see this even more with this other question that's asked. The Baal HaTurim says that why does it single out that Yaakov lived 17 years in Mitzrayim and then 147 years? It singles out those 17 years to say the Baal HaTurim was into gematrias. Gematria of 17, anyone know? Tov. Yes. And Teves, we said, is the month of Tov also, right? And he says that why is this single out the 17 years of Yaakov's life? To tell us that Yaakov's best years of his life were those 17 years in Mitzrayim. And the Semel Tzedek asked a big question about this, the third Chabad Rabbi. He said, how could it be that Yaakov's best years of his life were in a place that wasn't Eretz Yisrael, that was this horrible place that he didn't even want to go down? Yaakov was so against going down to Mitzrayim. He sent his sons because he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to go to Mitzrayim. It's such a depraved place. Bad things happened every time Jewish people went there. He wanted to stay away from there. He wanted to stay in Eretz Yisrael. And how can we say that his best years were there, right? Yes, he was reunited with his son Yosef, but he also had many years with Yosef before Yosef, the first 17 years of Yosef's life, right? Yosef was 17 when he was sold to Mitzrayim, and they were in Eretz Yisrael. What about his years with Rachel? He made it with Eretz Yisrael, right? Well, on their way, yeah. So why? How could we say this? That Yaakov's best years were there. So it's when we truly understand what true life is, then we can understand that in Yaakov's years, it showed that it was the best years of his life. So true life, just to build on what we've said earlier, is Chaim and Emes are synonymous. That life is synonymous not with a body that has a heart pumping, because there can be a body that has a heart pumping that a person is not living at all, right? They don't have nothing will remain with them, nothing that they've acquired. I mean, it says that not even the biggest Russia acquires deeds like the seeds of a pomegranate. So nobody has nothing, right? But there are people whose bodies have passed, but their true life continues in this world and making a much greater impact, and their connections are so much greater than somebody who's physically alive but doesn't have any of what true life is. So what is true life? Chaim is synonymous with emes, right? It says Eitz Chaim. It's a das, Eitz Chaim. Anyways, so life in Chassidus is synonymous with truth, with emes. And Yaakov was actually your name is Tiferes, right? So we learned that Avram and Yitzchak were Chesed and Gvura, right, in that order, and Yaakov was Tiferes. Shalom, can you grab a photo before you go? Sure. Thanks. Yaakov is Midah Tiferes, and it says Tiferes is the Midah of Emes. It's the Midah of truth, right? Because if you're too much in Chesed and you're too much in Gvura, then there's no truth to that, right? There's not full Emes, even though obviously the Avos were Emes. But if you have Tiferes, right, that's the balance of both. That's what Emes is. So why is that so? This actually answers. It says that Yaakov was Mitaso Shlema. He was the only one of all of the Avos. We discussed this many times, that all of his children remained tzaddikim. All 12 of his children remained tzaddikim, even Yosef when he was in Mitzrayim. And they said, what did Yaakov merit, right? The Avram was a great tzaddik, Yitzchak was a great tzaddik. They had children that were Risha'im, Ishmael and Esav, respectively. And Yaakov only had tzaddikim. What did he do differently? So we learn that that Emes is the balance, first of all, that it's not when there's chesed too much extreme in one side or too much extreme of gvura, right? Then something comes from it that's not perfection. Perfection has to be has to be tiferes, a balance of both. What does this mean in the deeper way? That ms, that it carries ms, the letters of ms are aleph, mem, and taf. That ms, something that's true, is something that's forever, and that's why life, which is forever, which is continues forever, is synonymous with ms, because anything that's true, the test to see if something is true in life is to see if it's from aleph to taf and mem. It goes from the beginning through the mem until the taf at the end, right? Drora every year tells me that ms without the aleph, without the oneness, is mace, right? That if you have truth, but it doesn't have that, Drora says this, I love it.
She does say that.
I love it. And so what does this mean? If anything in life feels real, and you don't know if this is real or not, right? Is this a real thing or is this not real? The test of it is to see if it follows through to the end, if it carries through the hard times. If it could get it till the end, then you know retroactively. So it's retroactively that it was true. Only at the end of something can you look back and know if it was truth or not truth. And we see this in Yaakov's life specifically. So Yaakov, with Yaakov's children, the fact that they continue to perpetuate who he was and all of everything that he gave to them and his existence and the messages and the values that he carried through all of his children shows us that Yaakov retroactively, everything he did was emes, everything he did was in balance, and everything he did was not just one way or the other way, it was a balance of both. And he did everything with pure truth and pure honesty, right? With pure, doesn't mean we're not talking about how to raise children or that because, his children were evil, had to reflect on the parents, obviously not. But we learned that Yaakov's midah of emes, because his source was from tiferes, was from the midah of truth, therefore it lasted. Therefore it continued to last and it was forever. Whereas their source was from chesed or gvura, they were the epitomes of chesed and gvura, therefore it carried through, but it didn't necessarily have an everlasting impact. Now, what does this mean about everlasting? So I'll give you a few examples. If you want to know if a relationship is real, right? Some people feel in love and they're like, this is true love. If they want to know if this is true love, right? The test is if it lasts, right? If they feel like they're in love, and some people feel like this is true love, and then they go through our challenge, right? And after love gets stale or things don't get as exciting anymore or there's another temptation, and then somewhat the love isn't faithful, then they know that wasn't true love, right? Because if it was true love, it would last forever. The biggest example of that in the Torah is actually that says true love in the Torah is the love of David and Yehona's son. It lasted even when he was threatened with death, even when his father ran against everything. It lasted through everything. Their love conquered everything. When love conquers all, and they can look back and see whatever hardship they're faced with, the love prevailed. That's true love. And the biggest example of true love is love between a parent and a child, right? No matter what test it goes through, the love of a parent and a child survives because it's emes. It's real love. So real love, the test is that it goes from aleph through mem, through all the challenges and hardships until the end. It doesn't waver. It stays. It stays. And it says that the midah of emes of Yaakov is the bria chatichon in the this is in Chassidus. It compares it to the pole that went all the way around the Mishkan, that it bent and it stayed. No matter where it went, it was level. It's level no matter what. Not that we don't have ups and downs in relationships, but that the love doesn't go away. Even when love is covered up, no matter what, the love comes back and resurfaces. It's like a heartbeat. There's ups and downs, but then there's a sort of medium of the heartbeat. That's where you want to be, right? An up and down, but it's always there, right? And it's not like it just stops. If a lot stops, that's death. That's not true emes. That's not life. So the true test for anything in life is to see if it lasts, if it can sustain, and if it can sustain all of the hardships and all the challenges. If it's put to the test, right? A friendship that's the best friendship in the world, but then you move away and you're not friends anymore. Not that it wasn't a true friendship, but it wasn't ms, right? Ms is something that you meet a friend and nothing can take away the bond. Sometimes it can be a true friendship that you meet again and then the love comes back right away, right? That's also a true friendship, right? But somebody who you break up with, the second things get hard, the going gets tough, the tough get going, that's not true love, right? True love is something that can sustain the test of time, right? A true midah, to test your midah and yourself, is to see if it sustains the tests and the of life, right? I love this example where my whole single life, I thought that I had mastered my emotions. There's a concept in Chassidus called moach shalit al halev, that the moach shalit al halev, the mind over matter, right? The heart, mind over matter, that I can use my mind to control all my heart's emotions. My anger never got the best of me because I thought I'd mastered. I'm just, I'm very cerebral. I just don't have, those natural tendencies. And I would try to explain to other people, like, don't be sad about this breakup, know it's for the best, know that he wasn't good for you. I was just like, your mind can tell you how to feel, right? And I was convinced that I was just, completely mastered it to the point that I would pray for feelings, natural feelings like anger and jealousy. And I would speak to rabbis about it, what's wrong with me? I want to just feel something, right? I want to feel pain. I want to feel things other people feel. And then I always say, and then I got the blessing of children and of marriage. And this appeared like this, right? Thank God I don't have that challenge anymore of not feeling. I get angry. I don't even connect to that person, right? So I literally,
The meat of the month, right?
the meat of the month is anger. Anger, like literally come home, the things are on the floor, like my house was clean, like I cleaned the whole house and then again stuff. I can get angry from anything. But I really, to the point that I thought that was so true in me, that like me, that Mokshat Halev, I was like just who I am. I would sit in traffic and everyone would be like for hours and be mad and I'm like, what's there to be mad about? Like this is meant, like we're meant to be here. Like our anger won't change the situation. And I was like, I want to kick that person that I said that. Like people probably hated me, I didn't understand the emotion. But the second that emotion, so how do I know if that midah was true? Because the second it faced true life, children, marriage, all of those things, suddenly, right, all of those feelings came and I realized that was never true to begin with. It just hadn't been tested, right? It didn't last through, so that was totally fake, right? It wasn't real. It wasn't a true emotion. It was true in that stage, but it's not true forever, right? It's not eternal and MS, and it's not chaim. Truth is something that lasts forever, after life, after death, through all the hardships, throughout everything, right? A true connection lasts forever. So Yaakov, the reason those 17 years were the best of his life is because Yaakov's whole life, right? He was stuck to who he was. He never wavered on his values. He went, right? He was faced with so many challenges, but the true test of his challenges was to see that after everything, if he can still be the Yaakov that he was, right, have the same values even after being down in Mitzrayim, right, even though he was in Haran, but now after being in Eretz Yisrael, having all his children, which were only born in Eretz Yisrael, losing Rachel, now could that last in Mitzrayim, tested not just by like the depravities like he was in Haran, but tested by wealth, by influence, by the power and the honor that he was given by the Egyptians, right? Would his values change? Would his dress change? Would his outlook change? Would who he was change in any way? Given all of the influence that he was given in Mitzrayim, having to leave Eretz Yisrael, would his love for Eretz Yisrael go away? Would his yearning to go back? And we learned that it didn't change for 1 minute. Every day Yaakov called himself, right? And that even imparted to Yosef, right? That he was an Ivri, even when he spent almost his entire life in Mitzrayim, right? Yosef lived his entire life, minus 17 years. He was the Ivri. He didn't belong there. Yaakov established his Goshen in as a place of yeshiva learning. He never got distracted by the distractions and the glitz of Mitzrayim. And when that came true, and when that was shown to be true, that Yaakov remained exactly who he was, right? Exactly who he was through everything, through going down to Mitzrayim, through being given the honor by the king or the palace, and he was simple. He lived a simple life in Goshen. He just wanted to learn Torah all day, and his values, what he gave over to his children, were exactly the same as before, right? He kept with him exactly the same values when he imparted it to, we'll see in the brachos to his children, in the rebukes against his children. Nothing changed. Then we see that everything was MS. That's why we see that they were the best years of his life, where he truly lived the most, because you see that his life was the same valuable before and after, right? Yaakov didn't change and Yaakov didn't waver. Chaim.
I just wanted to say that the example in the Torah of not being that is Amnon and Tamar.
Yeah.
Amnon and Tamar were like, it was lust.
Conditional love. Right. He thought he loved Tamar.
Yeah, but as soon as he had her,
right,
then it was gone.
And it was also a love that was devoid of respect, which is the Tiferes takes love and it combines it with Gevura, which is respect, right? Which is knowing that you're two different people. And that's only then can a love sustain, right? If there's just, I love you, it's me, right? It's not seeing you, and it's not having boundaries, it's not having space, it's not respecting you. It's such a good example, right? Pirkei Avos, Torah has all the examples. We have time for my next thought. Okay, the Torah's next thought. This is amazing. Another theme in this week's Parsha. I have to show you the sources. Okay. Look at the last source on the first page. We see there's okay, let's introduce this idea that in this parsha there's an unusual, I don't want to say obsession, an unusual focus on the burial place of somebody, right? For a parsha that we're talking about how, so now let's see if the first question we had was, why is the parsha called Vayechi if it's about death? And we learned that somebody's life actually comes to full fruition after death, right? That learning about the death of all these people tells us about what their life is all about, where they were buried, where they wanted to be buried, and knowing that after death they continue to live as much or even more as their legacy continues in the world through all the seeds that they planted and the impact that they had in the work, their values and the changes that they made for the world continue. So we actually see that in this week's parsha, although they all died, it's their life's work being completed. It's their life's work being brought out. And that's why Shimon Bar Yochai's death, he says it's a day of celebration. It's a day that all of his light was revealed. So a passing is when you're no longer constricted by your body's limitations to only be able to have a certain amount of connection. As many people as I love, and love is expansive, physically I'm limited by how much time I can connect to you. But when the soul leaves, time is a creation, and when the soul leaves the body, it's no longer constricted by time and by any of those limitations, and the soul can connect exponentially to all the people that connected to without any limitations of time. Albeit it's now limited because it doesn't have the physical medium, and we still would rather have a physical connection with somebody. But there is also an advantage, and there's also the truth of what the real life and the real connection that continues even in a greater way afterwards. So we see that death and life are very connected, and that's why Vayechi is not unusual that it's called Vayechi, even though it's talking about his passing. Now we want to talk about why is such a focus on where they're buried, right? If anyways afterwards we're disconnecting from the body, right? The body is not as important as, it's not what lasts forever, right? The body is limited, right? It disintegrates. So why such a focus on where a person is buried, right? What is the deeper meaning to that? We see this in 3 instances in this week's Parsha, a very big back and forth about it really matters where they're buried, that where a person's buried matters so much, right? Why does it matter? Truly think about it. Why does it matter where a person's buried? It's just their body. Their soul is forever. What's truly important is forever. So first of all, Chassidus, we love to say that the body is extremely important, right? The body is not just it's not just a shell, it's a home. It was designed and picked. Our body is exactly created and molded in this specific way. There's significance to every limb of our body, not just for physical, practical use, but we mirror, every part of our body mirrors the divine image of Hashem and mirrors something in spirituality. It's very, very, we're made in God's image, right? And each unique body is different. No two bodies are the same, and that's intentional. Hashem picked your body to be a home for your soul because your unique capabilities and strengths in your body are specifically designed for your mission in this life. And we really believe that. So first of all, our bodies are more significant. But we also learned that the place where a person's buried is where their soul's presence is the most, especially for the first year after the person passes away. The soul hovers. It stays there, doesn't even completely go. And even afterwards, the soul presence, the Shekhinah, the energy and the aura of the soul remains around the grave. So we can connect with the person most by physically going to the place of their grave. And that's why we go to the farm of Tzaddikim. If at the end, remind me to say a really crazy story about the grave places. But I did want to say that the Rabbi said that all the graves of Tzaddikim are connected, like this space, just like the idea of like that oneness and being embraced, that if somebody can't make it to the grave of their loved one or to the grave of a specific tzaddik, they can go to the grave of any tzaddik and pray there because the Shekhinah rests there, and it connects all of the tzaddik graves of all the graves of all the tzaddikim together. So being there, it's like a portal. And like now we're like in sci-fi world, we can understand this idea of like portals being opening to other places. It's a spiritual portal that connects to all of the other, like, spirituality is not just something floaty, it's dimensions, so it connects us to all of those dimensions. So if we can't make it to a specific grave, so people who can't go to the Ol of the Rebbe where the Shekhinah is there to get their blessing, he says go to the cave of any tzaddik. All the kfarim of tzaddikim are connected. Go to Rachel Yemeinu's cave, right, who passed away. We're talking about her death and her passing in this week's parsha. She passed away on Yud Aleph Cheshvan, Yud Bet. I thought it's Yud Aleph Cheshvan.
Yud Bet Cheshvan?
No, I think it's
Or Yud
Yud Aleph? Yud Aleph?
I think
No,
that
it's
was
Yud Bet or Yud Chet?
Yud Gimel was Friday.
It's Yud Aleph.
Yud
No,
Aleph?
it's
So then
Yud Aleph? Oh, no,
I just couldn't remember if it's
Cheshvan.
Cheshvan or Teves, but I think it's Cheshvan. Okay,
It's Cheshvan.
It is
for sure.
Cheshvan.
so it's 1 month from today, 1 month ago today. So now it's her 1 month burial anniversary, so we should all go. So where a person's buried is mentioned 3 times this week's parsha, and there's even a deeper significance to this. Not just so where a person's buried matters because their Shekhinah and their presence is connected to their body because they're synonymous. The effect they have in the world is a medium through the body, right? And we learned that the body specifically will reincarnate to the way it was. So it is a specific design, right? The body is not just a shell that we discard and don't treat with the most respect and develop it the most that we could, right? Now, on an even deeper note, this is where it gets really cool. So skip to the second. No, I didn't even bring it to you. Okay, I'm going to read you the sources. The first place in this week's parsha is in chapter 47, Mem Zayin, pasuk Chavtes. It says, Yaakov was what?
It's the first one.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Vayikvru Mei Yisrael, the first source, Lamos Vayikra Livno Yosef Vayarmolo. Im na matzasi chen beinecha, simna yadcha tachas yirechi. Right? He says, what does he tell him? He says, I'm going to pass away soon. Put your hand under my thigh, right? Not weird at all. And promise me that you won't bury me in Mitzrayim, right? Okay, so that makes sense, right? That's how they swore in those days, right? We learned this another time, why they use the bris to swear on, right? Then next pasuk says, "V'shachachti mavaisai," and I'll lay with my fathers. That means he wants to be buried in Maris Machpelah, right? Or in the land of my fathers. V'nestasani miMitzrayim v'kvartani b'kvurasam, bury me in their burial place, right? V'yomar anochi esek kavrach, and he says, "Okay, I'll do what you said." Oh, Yosef agrees. Then he makes some promise again. V'yomar hishavali, he says, "Swear to me." Right? He says, "I already told you." Vayishava lo, and he promised him Vayishtachu Yisrael al Rosh Hamita, and he prostrated on the bed. Right? So he wasn't enough. So we have a question: why did he make him swear? Why wasn't it enough that he didn't trust his son Yosef? He says, "Okay, I'll bury you there." Why did he make him swear again? And then I believe there's even another time where he makes him swear another time, but I'm not sure if that's the second time or not. Okay, I thought that there's another place where he says again, but I'm not sure. We'll see if we get to it. But in any case, the Mefarshim asked the question. Okay, so anyways, that's what happens. The Mefarshim asked the question: why did he make him swear if he already promised him? Why did he make him swear again? It seems very unnecessary. He didn't and untrusting. And the Mefarshim say he made him swear because Paro. He knew that Paro wouldn't let him take Yaakov out because the pharaohs believed in Egypt, right? First of all, they saw how much blessing Yaakov brought to Mitzrayim from the minute he was there, and he was given so much honor. The Nile overflowed with water from the minute Yaakov came, so they saw a direct connection. And they believed, right, that the body of a pharaoh was sacred and it had to be buried and embalmed and kept, right? So they wanted Yaakov's body to stay in Mitzrayim because they really worshipped right? They knew that the body brings blessing. They knew that connection even after passing, right? So they said, "There's no way that Paro is going to let you take me out." So he says that he made him swear so that Yosef can tell Paro, I have to take him out because I made him a swear. It was his dying wish. So the Paro can't fight with that, right? You can't argue with the man's dying wish. And that's actually what happened. Paro didn't want to take him out. He said, "No, we want his body here. It's bringing his blessing. You're going to take away our source of blessing." And Yosef said, "He made me swear," right? So they said, okay. And that's actually what happened. They took his body out. There was accompanied by all the greatest ministers of Egypt were accompanied with him. Cavalries accompanied him. This is a long journey, right? We're thinking Egypt, south of Eilat, right? On foot or by carriages, all the way up to Maris Machpelah, right? And they're traveling this whole way. They get there. This is the story we shared in Teves that happened, right? That Asa was blocking. Chushim, the son of Dan, takes out a sword and kills him, and then they bury him. And on the way, all the kings of all the nations along the way took their crowns off their head and placed it on Yaakov's coffin. They took all their jewelry and adorned him. So he came, this great procession, right, coming to this grave to bury him. So that's the burial of Yaakov in the Medrash. So now we have this question: why did he force him? So the Rebbe says there's even a deeper reason why he made him swear, right? It's not just to convince Paro. He could have just said, "Tell Paro," but we learned an even deeper thing, and we'll see this by Yosef's passing. The last two psukim in this week's Parsha discuss Yosef's passing. Now, where did Yosef? If Yosef, wouldn't he want to be buried with his father, right? With his mother, with his father in Eretz Yisrael? No, Yosef actually says that you're going to remain here for a while. When it came time for him to die, he swore to his sons that Pakod Elokim Anochi Meis, I'm going to die. Elokim Pakod Yifkod Yischem. Hashem will remember you. And he said to remember those words, Pakod Yifkod. The Jewish people held on to those words, that Hashem will remember them, so that they knew that was the sign, the secret words, that the person will come to save them. They knew that's the sign that this is the person Hashem sent them. So when Moshe came and said, Pakod Yifkod, Pakod Pakad Hashem remembered you, they said, oh, this is what Yosef told us all those years ago, that Hashem will remember us. This is a sign that this is the person Hashem sent to save us, right? Right? He swore to them again, Pakod Yifkod Elokim, V'halisem etz atzmo, Hashem will remember you. Then V'halisem etz atzmo samizeh. When Hashem remembers you, then take my bones from here. And that's what happened. V'yamas Yosef ben Me'ah v'Esar Shanim. He was 110 years old. V'yichantu, also they embalmed him. V'yasimu ba'aron b'Mitzrayim. And they put him in a coffin in Mitzrayim. So he was buried in Mitzrayim. So here we have a second time where it speaks about where Yosef was buried, right? And that he specifically cared where he was buried, that his bones should be taken out afterwards, right? Not necessarily now, but I want you to take, and he knew, it's interesting, he didn't say my body, he said my bones. So he knew it's going to be, I guess that was a hint that it's going to be a long time, right? That they're going to have to leave because there's no body going to be remained even after the embalming or the mummifying or whatever they did. There's only going to be bones left at the time, but I want you to take my bones out of here. So it was clear that there was going to be a long time, and Yosef said, I specifically want to go when you go out, not before, right? So Yaakov, the Rebbe has this incredible sicha in Chelek Lamed Chavhei, where he says that Yaakov wanted to be buried. Why did Yaakov want to be buried out of Mitzrayim? Because he knew what was going to happen. The prophecy was Hashem told Avram that they're going to be slaves in this land that's not to them, right? And he said, and this is something really deep, and this is where we're going to talk about mental health, that he said that, and we're going to talk about Mitzrayim and then how it goes in our lives, in our struggles, that that the best way that he can help the Jewish people is if he's outside of Mitzrayim, that they're going to be in this dark place. They're going to be down in Mitzrayim in slavery. And he said that when somebody is stuck, when somebody's in a dark place, when somebody is stuck, then they often need something outside of them to pull them out. The greatest image that comes to my mind is somebody in a pit. Somebody who's down in a pit. In Mitzrayim is considered a narrow strait. Somebody who's stuck in a pit. He can't get himself out, right? Because he can't climb out. If it's too deep for him to climb out. But somebody on top can easily lend him a hand or send down a rope and pull him out. But he himself can't come out. So he says, I want to be able to pray for you and help you while you're in Egypt. And I have to be on the outside in order to help you. I can't help you if I'm in Egypt. I want to be the person on the outside that's able to pull you out and able to schlep you out and give you chizuk from the outside and lend you down a hand so I can take you out of your low place. If I'm low with you, I'm not going to be able to pull you out, right? And that's what Yaakov's, that was why Yaakov specifically wants to be buried in Mitzrayim. So
In Israel.
In Israel and out of Mitzrayim. This is such a powerful message that I remember. So this is where I'm going to talk about mental health, where I think I may have shared this before, but after I had my first son, so close to 9 years ago, I had a really, really bad depression, really, really dark depression. And I remember some people saying like, are you going to therapy? Are you getting help? And the truth is that I wasn't able to help myself. That I was, even when I had a therapist, that my friends or parents, somebody made me an appointment. I was an adult, but I would just miss appointment after appointment. I couldn't get to my appointments, and there's a lot of judgment. And often we see somebody who's in a really dark place, who's struggling, and we're like, why are you missing your appointments, right? Like you got you a therapist, someone gave you help. Like why aren't you going to your appointments? You don't want to help yourself, so why should anyone help you, right? And that's often that judgment that we naturally have, that I've had about people, right? If you're not going to help yourself, then what do you want from us? Like at least help yourself. At least go to your own appointments. Don't keep missing your appointments. Why aren't you trying to get help? Why aren't you trying to change? Why aren't you getting the help that you need? And I can say from my experience that I just couldn't. And I just couldn't get to my appointments. I was in such a dark place that even if first of all, leaving the house was not even an option for me. Getting dressed and leaving the house was impossible. It was like easier for me to climb Mount Everest than to leave the house. And even if the appointment was on Zoom or Skype, even that was hard for me, like to push myself to do that, because either you're in too low of a place to do it, or sometimes you just have like a high and you're like, I don't need, you're sometimes so stuck. Sometimes people are so stuck that they don't even know how stuck they are. And sometimes they're in just a dark place that they're helpless to help themselves. And the imagery of it is, the Chachamim say this in the pasuk, they say, "In chovesh matir asmo." Chovesh is somebody who's tied up, who's captured, can't untie himself. But someone else can untie them. Because you're the one who's stuck, it's really hard to help yourself out because you're stuck. And it's so hard to understand that because you're like, it's not that hard. Because for me to imagine, it's not that hard for you to just go to your appointment, right? But you're not stuck. So for you, it's not hard because you're on the outside. But for that person, it is that hard. And I want to give a huge, karas hatov at the time, after a long time of not going to appointments, missing, not being able to get myself the help that I needed. I had my husband and my really good friend at the time who literally would come over and pick me up and take me. I can drive myself, I can go on the subway, but I couldn't without somebody literally taking me. They would come and be like, okay, what do you need to get out of the house? Can I get you, how can I help you get out of the house? How can I help you get dressed? How can I support you? What does support look like right now, right? Helping me literally from getting out of my bed to the car, to getting the appointment, to being there with me because it was too overwhelming to do anything by myself at the time. And I couldn't have got better without the help. But it was so hard. It's so hard for people to understand that somebody who's in the situation, those things that are easy for you are not easy for them, because mental health doesn't look like other illnesses, right? It's not like if somebody's physically can't walk, you're like, well, obviously I can help them, if it's easy for me. But this is, it's very real. It's just not something that is as easy to see. And Yaakov understood this. He said that if I'm in it with them, then I can help them, right? That I can only untie them and free them and daven for them and give them that salvation when they're on the outside. And it was that knowledge also that the whole time we're in Mitzrayim, Yaakov's there, he's on the outside, we're going to get there, right? Sometimes knowing we're in a dark place and knowing that, someone has gone through it and they've been out on the other side, it's so empowering to hear other people's stories, to have someone who's on the outside praying for us, to have somebody who's just literally empowering us and pulling us out and saying, oh, come, I'm okay, right? I'm not sick, I can take you to your appointment. For them, it's still not a big deal. It's like, okay, I'll come and take you to your appointment. It's hard. It's a big, I'm not discrediting or diminishing the time and effort, but it's not as stuck. You're not as stuck, and therefore it's much easier. So ein chovesh matir atzmo is what Yaakov's philosophy was on how to help someone in their darkness, how to help the Jewish people in their darkness, and it's a philosophy for life that often we need to know this, and this is so empowering. First of all, in addition to helping other people and seeing that they're stuck and not judging them and saying, why aren't you getting the help you need? Saying maybe they're so stuck in their darkness that they can't help themselves. They're just not able to. And I can't understand that and I can't judge it, but I can help them because for me, I'm like, it's not that hard. So I can go and make them the appointment, right? And sometimes you'd be surprised. You'd think like, I don't want to overstep, but you just say, can I get you an appointment with a psychiatrist, with a psychologist, with a therapist? And they'll be like, yes, please. That would be so helpful. Or like, if you don't mind, you don't realize how when people want it, they want to get help and they want to be helped. They just don't know how to ask for it, right? So if we can reach out and say, would you want me to do that for you? Or can I please do that for you? How open people would be, you'd be shocked because it's not how we would normally think. And for somebody who is struggling in a dark place, that it's also so important for them to know that ein chovesh matir asmo. It's not that, you don't want to help yourself. It's not like, why can't I get to my appointment? Someone who's stuck can't pull themselves out, right? You really need someone on the outside who's not stuck to give you a schlep. So you should reach out and say, I really need support. I want to get better. And I can't help myself, and I just can't do any of these things. I can't make myself an appointment. I can't find the right doctor. Even thinking about it is just too much for me at this point. Can you help me? Or do you know someone who can help me? And reaching out to people, having a support team and saying, I need your support. And even if I have the appointment, I just want you to know there's a 100% chance that I'm not going to get up and go to it. Even if it costs $500, right? That's how hard it is to get out of bed and to get to somewhere right now. Right? So it's really important to be able to express those things and to understand that when you're in Mitzrayim, you really need someone on the outside advocating for you and pulling you out and being there for you, because that's just the nature of being stuck somewhere. And that's why Yaakov made Yosef swear. So why did he make him swear? Because Yaakov knew that Yosef has a different philosophy. And Yosef, right, he was the one who was in the pit. He was one who was sent down. He was enslaved. He was sent to Mitzrayim. Yosef's philosophy was really deep. He said that I can help you much better if I'm in the pit with you, right? He said that we need you to be with us to help us, right? We need you in there. And it's actually really deep. Yosef said, I can best help you. I want my bones to be with you so you know you're not alone. And that's such a beautiful, that's also a beautiful way to help somebody with mental health. Anyone with mental health knows there's a big difference. Not mental health, no, sorry. There's a huge difference between sympathy and empathy. They're so similar, right? They look so similar. I'm reaching out to you to help you, but sympathy and empathy are so different, right? Sympathy is you're in the hole, and I'm saying, I feel so bad for you that you're in the hole, right? What can I get for you? And empathy is saying, I'm so pained seeing you in the hole. Not I feel bad for you, like over there. Sympathy is you're there, I'm here, and I'm gonna, feel bad for you and then go back to my own life. Empathy is I'm in the pain with you, right? You're in pain, that makes me in pain. Like the beautiful story, I forget which Rav in Yerushalayim went to a doctor and he said it says it about everybody, but I think it is about Ari Levine. He went to the doctor and he said, Doctor, my wife's foot hurts us, right? That's empathy. Empathy is if you're in pain, I'm sad because you're in pain. So empathy is not saying you there in the pit, I feel bad for you. Empathy looks, the visual of it is climbing down in the pit and saying, you're sad, I'm going to stay next to you, right? I'm going to just be here with you. I'm with you in this pain. If you're in pain, I'm in pain. And it sounds almost the same words. It's not saying I feel bad for you. It's I feel bad because you're sad. I'm in pain because you're in pain. I'm so sad that you're hurting. It hurts me to see you like this. Those are empathetic words, right? It's sad that you feel like that is sympathy, and it hurts me to see you like this is so much more validating, and it can give a person a lift to know that they're not alone in their pain, right? Sometimes we want to change things so often. We want to change it when our children are screaming and crying. We want to help them. What's wrong? We want to talk about it. But sometimes they just need us to sit near them when they're sad. Mm-hmm. And I saw this amazing video a few years ago of a father. His kid was just having a tantrum. He was just sitting there with him, right? Not trying to change it, just saying, I'm sad because you're sad, right? I'm with you in this pain. You're not alone. And just holding his hands out until the child's ready to embrace him, right? Sometimes the biggest help at medicine is just knowing that somebody is going to stay with you in this dark place, even though it's so uncomfortable to do that, right? Because you want it to stop because of our own feelings. We want the tantrum to stop. It's triggering us. It's making us anxious. It's making us overwhelmed. It's bothering us. But what the child needs is not for us to make it better or to fix it. Often they just need us to empathize and to be there with them. And that's already a huge boost, right? That already gives us the boost. That's on one level of what it means that Yosef wanted to remain in Mitzrayim. He said, I'm not going to leave you until you leave. I'm not going out. I'm going to go out when I'm going to go out when you go out. But until then, you need me in here to give you the chizuk, to know that Yosef knows that we're going to go out, right? It's inspiring in so many ways. It's, you're here with me. I'm not alone. I can do this because I have someone that believes in me. Yosef also, it's reminding us that we're going to get out of this because Yosef said we're going to leave, right? They're so empowering in so many ways to say, I can help you the most. Yosef said, when I'm down there and with you, when you're alone, when you're so stuck, I'm not just going to be on the outside, but I'm going to be there in the pit with you. I'm going to get through this together, right? You're not alone. And it's a huge relief the second you know that you're going through something hard and you have someone by your side saying, we're going to get through this together. It changes everything, right? It makes the load bearable when you know that it's not just you getting through it, that you have a team, because it feels so hard to know that you're on this on your own, doing this on your own. So because Yaakov knew that Yosef's going to want to keep him in Mitzrayim, so even though he said, I'll bury, so there's a few answers, but one of the beautiful answers is that Yaakov said to Yosef, promise me you'll take me in Mitzrayim, and he said, okay, I will. And then he says, swear to me that you'll take me out, bury me now in Mitzrayim, because he said maybe Yosef's going to say, I'll take him out, but when we go out, right, later, first, will Yaakov support us through being in Mitzrayim, through being buried here? Meanwhile, and then when we go out, then I'll bury him in Eretz Yisrael. So Yaakov said, no, promise me that right now, that you're not going to bury me for even one day in Mitzrayim, even though I know you're going to want to keep me, right? So that's on one level, that first of all, to say, not that you're going to wait later, and you're going to do later, but that now you're going to take me. And this another, even on another level, it's that I know, right, Yaakov saying to Yosef that that even though I know you're going to hold on for me to be here, to give chizuk to Bnei Israel through their darkness, through Mitzrayim, and I know that that's how you feel I can give them the most, promise me that you'll take me out nonetheless, even though it goes against what you believe, because I need to be there to help them. That's where I have to be to help them, right? I could have to be on the outside so that somebody's on the outside to pull them out, right? Because somebody who's down in it can't get themselves out of it. And really, I think that in Mitzrayim, we know is a metaphor, is a place that we were physically on the map, but it's also a state. We've all been, even if somebody doesn't have a diagnosis of a mental health struggle, we've all been in Mitzrayim. We've all been stuck. We've all been in dark places, right? No one gets to live in this life without being in Mitzrayim at least once, twice, many times. Some of us have a dark, despairing Mitzrayim. Some of us have times in our life, think we've emerged from dark places. We've all been in Mitzrayim, right? No one needs a diagnosis to know that we've been in these places where it feels like we can't get out, and we just feel stuck, and we feel hopeless, and we feel defeated, and we feel alone, and we don't know how it's going to change. So we've all been in Mitzrayim.
I had
and
to go to Mitzrayim for 3 days.
to actual Egypt on the map. I don't mind. I would love to go to physical Egypt.
Oh, well, the third day was terrible. The first day was a lot of fun, and the second day was okay, and the third day I just wanted to get out of there.
But I'm talking about a spiritual state of Egypt, like a state of mind that's constricting. Mitzrayim meaning mitzar, constriction, being stuck. Mitzar, yeah. Mitzar, the word Mitzrayim means constriction. It means being in a narrow place. It means being in a stuck place. And I think that we need the message of Yaakov and Yosef is that we need both. That we need not just one, but we need that both of them are really empowering messages, and we need both at different times and sometimes at the same time. And going even one layer deeper. So we need to know that we should turn to sometimes we can't help ourselves. Sometimes we can, but sometimes if we feel like we need help, want help, and we can't get it, we should realize that someone on the outside could get it for us more. And hopefully we all have those people in our lives who could be there for us, right? And we should be there for other people so that they'll be there for us. And it's so that we can help other people when we see that they're stuck and they're not helping themselves, and say, well, maybe they just can't, right? And it's also the empowerment to know that we're not alone, right? And a message for us in that is that Yosef is here with us. What does that mean now, right? When we're in our dark places, to know that we learn that there's Yosef inside every one of us. That all of us are called Son Yosef, the sheep of Yosef. That we are all called, even though we're called Bnei Israel of Yaakov, we're specifically referred to as Yosef, as many times in the Torah we're compared to Yosef. And we learn that we have an element of Yosef inside of our souls. And that means that even if we're in the darkest place, even if we can't get out on our own, even if we feel stuck in the pits, in this dark stage of our life, in a Mitzrayim, where we feel helpless, to remember that that there's still Yosef's bones buried inside of us, that there's a part of our soul that's completely unaffected by this state of darkness. There's a part of us, there's a part of of our soul that's not stuck right now. There's a part of me that's existing beyond this already. There's a part of me that has the tools, that has the light, that's lit up in this darkness. That even in the darkest times, there's a cruise of oil left, right? There's always oil left, and we just have to dig deeper. The Yosef bones are with me, right? I just have to go into the water and pull it away, and maybe call it revoke that Yosef inside of me. So to know that it's not dark at the end of the day, I'm not alone in here. Yosef's bones are with me. That means that there's a part of my soul, there's a light that's that will get me through this. And I just have to maybe pull it out of me and dig it deeper. And then that little cruise of oil will burn and last for 8 days. But it's there inside of me. And that's really inspiring to remember and to know that I have the answers all inside of me. Right? I remember like in therapy once, like my therapist pointing out, by the way, like I haven't told you anything. Everything is coming from you, right? And it's really true, right? You're a good therapist, doesn't give you advice or push you in any direction. She helps you uncover what's deeper down. She just moves, helps you get to what you really know in your source. You know all the answers. You know what you need. You're the person that knows and holds all that inside of you, right? The truth is you don't necessarily, not that you don't need help from the outside to get there, right? We often need an outside person. We need a therapist. We need somebody on the outside to pull us there. But at the end of the day, the true source of light is inside of us, right? The true source of chizuk for them was Yosef Bones with them the whole time there. It's inside of us. We have a piece of our place that, number one, is always light. And that piece of us that even after being broken completely, there's a piece of us that was never broken, that was always whole, right? We learned that there's a part of us that's unbreakable. There's a part of us that's uncontaminated, that it's untouchable by no one could touch, right? Like the Greeks were so frustrated because they can't touch it. No armies and darkness could ever get out the light, right? It says, there's no amounts of waters that can extinguish the flame inside my soul. That flame, that hope, that light, that goodness, that salvation, and that koach, that strength. Even if we feel helpless and powerless, if we remember that Yosef's bones are inside of us, that will remind us to just keep digging, and maybe we'll need help from someone else. And I'll share one more really vulnerable story. That's how I knew I had depression the first time, because I didn't have any experiences in my life with depression. I remember I was living in Israel, first year of marriage. I was still pregnant at the time when I actually had depression, just so in case for awareness, not everyone gets postpartum depression. I had something called antepartum depression. And people got depression not connected to kids either, right? Life, Baruch Hashem. So I remember calling my mom and saying, can you tell me something good about me? Please tell me something. And she thought I'm joking. And I was like, no, I can't think of anything good about myself right now. Like, I couldn't think about anything positive. So she was like, you're my sunshine, you're my light. Thank God my mom's amazing. And then it happened again, like maybe a week later. And I was just like, when she told me nice things about myself, I just cried. I was like, oh, you're right, I do have good inside of me, right? And that's when I realized maybe, and when I said that to her the second time, she said, this doesn't sound like my Kiki. Like, I used to be very confident, and I've never asked somebody to tell me something good about myself. And when she said this doesn't sound like me, it clicked. I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't me. Maybe something's happening to me now that's not me, because this isn't me. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? So I started Googling, like, can you get depression in pregnancy? And I saw that I couldn't. I just did this like online depression test. I'm like, oh, I'm literally clinically depressed. I diagnosed myself, and then I got, like, later on I got a diagnosis, but it took like sometimes it was like, yeah, we have that goodness in me. My mom was not making up something in me, but sometimes we can turn to somebody and ask them to like help us light our flame, right? We need a shamish, we need somebody. So for us to help people in our lives, you don't know the impact of just going to somebody in the street and just how much it impacts us when somebody just comes to you and just goes like, you just are so beautiful, right? You have such an aura. How much does that elevate us and lift that life inside of us and pull that out of us, right? It uplifts us so much, and we realize how much it uplifts us when even a total stranger just stops and says something nice to us, or smiles at us, or just says thank you so much for whatever you're doing, or just a big smile and asks us our name and says thank you. When we remember that, we can really use that to uplift somebody else, to remind them their light, remind them their light, to bring it out. So we should all be blessed to have to be in touch with our inner Yosef, to have people in our lives who can lift us up when we're down, and to be those people for other people in our lives, and to live life with true life to be able to impact every single day, leave something tiny that will last forever, right? That will leave an impacting legacy. And it's not that hard. It's not hard work to do those things. It's sending a message to somebody, I'm thinking about you. It's making a stronger connection with somebody in our life, like our children that we love, right? Those things, things that really make a difference are not the hard things, right? They're the free things, or the things in life that don't come with as much of a price tag. So thank you for joining me. I hope I didn't make you morbid, and I hope it gave you a lot to think about and enrich your lives in a positive way.
Beautiful.
Thanks for joining.
Really nice
That was
Kiki.
really amazing.
Now I don't know how to post this.
Can you say that last
It goes
sentence,
this
that last phrase you said about water and?
If I press exit, then it deletes. My first YouTube live. Oh, thanks to everyone who watched me live. If you subscribe and we get to 1,000 subscribers, then we get to go live from the computer, and it'll be better quality and better quality sound. So please, if you enjoyed this video, send it to your friends, send it to your family. You can always sponsor a share for any amount of a donation to chabadofrat.com/donate. And you can dedicate a share in memory of anybody. Any amount is great and helpful. And thank you to everyone who joined. And I wish I knew how to post this. No, because it says,
No, don't worry about it.
no, I press X at the end. I'm not pressing X.
Just close close it, it automatically.
I'm not closing this. If I lose this recording,